There's a comfortable lie that almost every man believes, that attraction is built by talking more, explaining better, or being more nice. Machiavelli would have laughed at that. In real life, politics guided by reality, not ideals. Desire doesn't spring from excessive clarity. It springs from tension, ambiguity, and what lingers when silence enters the room. If you've ever felt that some women simply disappear while others seem to think about someone even when he's not there, it's not by chance. It's a method. Decisions based on real human nature explain why certain men are quickly forgotten while others become a recurring memory. What almost no one tells you is that power lies not in impressing, but in making the other person reveal themselves. The end justifies the means when the means is to provoke emotional awareness. It's not about compliments, it's not about pickup lines, it's not about obvious games, it's about questions that create internal conflict, silent desire, and a deep emotional connection. Questions that make someone observe themselves, contradict themselves, and without realizing it link that mental state to your presence. Better to be feared than loved here means not being afraid of silence, of pauses, of tension, and knowing how to avoid being hated by maintaining respect, calm, and absolute control. In this video, you'll understand how to use questions that don't demand attention, they attract it. Questions that don't over-explain, don't beg for connection, and don't reveal your intentions. On the contrary, they operate with the calculated use of force, an appearance of virtue, aligned virtue and fortune, and constant adaptability to the moment. If you apply this correctly, you won't be someone she talks to out of politeness. You'll be someone who occupies space in her mind when the day ends and the noise fades. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He begins by explaining that none of this is about pretty phrases or empty games. It's about politics guided by reality, not ideals. Machiavelli already warned, those who understand true human nature don't beg for attention. They create situations where the other reveals themselves. In intimate conversations, power lies not in the volume of the voice, but in the precision of silence. The end justifies the means when the goal is to move beyond predictability and into the territory of emotional impact. A man who knows how to listen, observe, and ask questions with intention operates with calculated use of force, not haste. He doesn't seek approval. He understands that at certain times it's better to be feared than loved, as long as he knows how to avoid being hated. This is the basis. Less talk, more reading of the environment, decisions based on constant adaptability. What seems like casual conversation is, in fact, strategy, and strategy begins with philosophy. The mentor reminds us that the right questions act like mirrors. They reflect back to the person something they weren't ready to see. When used well, they create desire, confusion, and a slight obsession, not through cheap manipulation, but through emotional coherence. The appearance of virtue here isn't pretense, it's self-control. Just as Machiavelli advocated for his own loyal armies, a man needs to master his own impulses before attempting to guide any interaction. It's not about praising, but about guiding the focus. Those who ask clearly guide the narrative without forcing anything. Practical examples? Instead of telling stories to impress, they pause. Instead of explaining themselves, they observe micro-expressions. Instead of reacting, they hold eye contact. Virtù and fortuna meet when preparation and opportunity align, and opportunity arises when the other person begins to talk about themselves. He emphasizes that women connect deeply with those who truly listen and know what to ask at the right moment. Questions are tools. In the wrong hands, they become noise. In the right hands, they become direction. The central principle echoes Machiavelli. Power lies not in what you say, but in what you make others reveal. That's why these questions create mystery, desire, and emotional contradiction, because they touch the shadow without invading. There is no rush, no anxiety. There is presence. The conversation ceases to be an exchange of information and becomes an experience. And when the experience begins, the game changes. From here, each question will have a specific purpose, a predictable effect, and a calculated silence. And it is precisely at this point that the next step becomes inevitable. He makes it clear from the outset that these questions are neither compliments nor cheap pickup lines. They are tools for emotional analysis, aligned with a policy guided by reality, not ideals. Machiavelli never taught how to please. He taught how to understand the terrain before acting. Here, the terrain is emotional. Each question is designed to shift the conversation from the superficial to the internal, from the predictable to the contradictory. When used well, they activate curiosity, create mental gaps, and make the other person continue thinking even after the conversation ends. The end justifies the means when the means is emotional awareness. It's not about forcing connection, but about allowing it to emerge naturally. And this requires control, presence, and decisions based on real human nature, not naive romanticism. The mentor explains that desire is born from controlled uncertainty. Questions that evoke emotion work because they break the common script. While most try to appear interesting, those who master these questions become intriguing. This is a calculated use of force, applying the right pressure at the right point and then retreating. The appearance of virtue lies in seeming calm, curious, almost unassuming, while the conversation deepens on its own. Just as loyal armies don't depend on unstable allies, these questions don't depend on external validation. They work because they activate memories, fantasies, and internal conflicts. A simple example: instead of asking, "What do you like?" he leads the conversation to, "What makes you feel something you can't explain?" The difference is subtle, but the effect is profound. He also warns, these questions don't create obsession through insistence, but through emotional association. The human mind associates intense feelings with the presence of whoever was there at the moment. Virtù and fortuna come into play when a person knows when to advance and when to remain silent. It's not about the quantity of questions, but about impact. A single, well-placed question is worth more than an entire conversation. And here a crucial detail arises. Whoever doesn't know how to sustain silence destroys their own effect. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, means not being afraid of the momentary emptiness of the conversation. Silence presses, reveals, expands. It is in this space that curiosity grows. And it is precisely at this point that the first question needs to be introduced. Question 1. What does a man do that makes you feel in danger but attract you even more? He explains that this question works because it goes straight to the emotional boundary where fear and desire intertwine, a territory most avoid out of social cowardice. Machiavelli understood that decisions based on real human nature are more effective than pretty speeches, and this is no different. By asking this, the man makes it clear that he is not there to be safe or predictable. He accepts human ambiguity. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. People connect with intensity, not with excessive comfort. The end justifies the means when the means are emotional truth. This question reveals the energy that excites, not what is socially acceptable. And by doing so calmly, he demonstrates a calculated use of force. There is no invasion, there is an invitation. The danger here is not a threat, it is a presence that does not ask permission. The mentor advises that execution is as important as the question. He speaks softly, keeps his body relaxed, holds her gaze. There's no rush to answer because the silence has already begun to work. The appearance of virtue manifests in self-control. Those who overreact lose authority. When she answers, he listens as if deciphering a map. There lies the emotional blueprint. Virtù and Fortuna align when preparation meets opportunity, and the opportunity arises in her answer. Instead of commenting, he elaborates with a simple phrase, "So what happens when you meet a man like that?" This continuation isn't curiosity, it's strategy. Own and loyal armies mean not depending on external approval. He trusts the process and maintains the space. After the answer, he doesn't fill the air with unnecessary words. Better to be feared than loved here means not fearing silence. He lets the pause linger, observing micro-gestures, breathing, subtle changes in her gaze. Avoiding being hated requires respect. There is no judgment, only presence. Silence creates emotional pressure and causes her to compliment, reveal more, contradict herself. This is how power manifests itself, not in explicit control, but in what the other spontaneously gives. Constant adaptability comes into play when he adjusts his energy to her response, without rigidity. The question fulfilled its purpose. It opened an inner door, and when one of these doors opens, others become vulnerable, especially the next one, which directly touches on what she hides even from herself. Question 2. What is your most secret weakness? Something only someone special could find. He teaches that this question doesn't attack, it whispers. Unlike direct and invasive approaches, here there is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. People only reveal what is fragile when they feel it won't be used against them. Machiavelli understood that real power doesn't force doors. It creates situations where the other chooses to open them. By asking this question, a man communicates something subtle. I'm not interested in your social version. The end justifies the means when the means is to create emotional security without appearing needy. Secret weakness is not a flaw, it's the point where desire, fear, and identity meet. Whoever understands this operates with decisions based on real human nature, not on empty curiosity. The mentor warns that the biggest mistake here is to pressure her. Calculated use of force means knowing when to back off. If she hesitates, he doesn't insist. He reassures her with something like, "You don't need to say it, I'm already imagining it." This phrase changes everything. It removes the pressure and at the same time plants curiosity. The appearance of virtue manifests itself in silent respect. Often, it is precisely at this point that she decides to speak, because the space has been maintained. Virtù and Fortuna come into play when patience meets the right emotional moment. Practical examples? He doesn't interrupt, doesn't over-validate, doesn't try to appear overly understanding. He simply listens like someone who knows how to handle whatever comes. When she finally opens up, he doesn't turn it into a drama or a solution. Better to be feared than loved here means not becoming emotionally dependent on that revelation. He calmly replies, "Interesting. I feel there's something even more dangerous that you're not telling me." This phrase creates depth without accusation. Avoiding being hated requires care. The tone is curious, not confrontational. Silence returns, amplifying the effect. His own loyal armies represent inner strength. He doesn't need to save, correct, or advise. The revelation creates intimacy, and intimacy creates bonding. But before that bond stabilizes, the next question pushes the conversation into even more intense territory: the memory of the danger he experienced. Question 3. What is the most dangerous thing someone has ever awakened in you? He explains that this question is a direct key to the shadow, that part that is not socially safe, but is profoundly real. Machiavelli always operated from a politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And here the principle is the same: the most striking experiences are rarely the most correct. By asking her to recall something dangerous, the man leads her to an intense emotional state where memory and sensation become confused. The end justifies the means when the means is to access emotional truth, not the edited version of the story. This question activates memories of wild, impulsive, out-of-control moments, exactly where desire and identity mix. Whoever understands this makes decisions based on real human nature, not on what seems nice to tell. The mentor advises that the posture here should be one of absolute calm. Calculated use of force means not reacting, not being surprised, not showing shock. While she responds, he observes her breathing, pauses, and glances. The appearance of virtue is emotional neutrality. Nothing she says seems excessive to him. If she hesitates, he softens without removing the tension. It's okay. Sometimes danger is beautiful too. This phrase validates without romanticizing. Virtù and fortuna come into play when he chooses the exact moment to speak, a single sentence at the right time. Practical examples? He doesn't ask questions in sequence, doesn't try to elicit graphic details, doesn't show anxious curiosity. He maintains his position as someone who knows where he stands. When she opens up, he doesn't comment on the story, he comments on the energy. Interesting. I feel there's something even more dangerous that you're not telling me. And this repetition isn't carelessness, it's strategy. Better to be feared than loved here means not being afraid of the emotional intensity that arises. Avoiding being hated demands absolute respect. No judgment, no labels, no attempts to overinterpret. Silence returns and does the hard work. His own loyal armies symbolize inner mastery. He doesn't get lost in her emotion. The memory has been activated, the body reacts, and the association is created. At this point, the conversation has already ceased to be rational, and when rationality falls, the next question finds fertile ground. The territory of fantasies that have never been spoken aloud. Question 4. What's the craziest thing you would do if no one ever found out? He explains that this question opens the door to fantasies, not the displayed fantasies, but the silent ones, kept away from social judgment. Here, politics guided by reality, not by ideals, appears forcefully. Everyone harbors desires that don't fit into the public image. Machiavelli knew that the appearance of virtue maintains order, but it is in the shadows that energy moves. The end justifies the means, when the means is to allow the other to imagine without defending themselves. By formulating the question in this way, the man does not demand confession. He offers mental space, and space is power. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that the forbidden attracts not by the act itself, but by the freedom to think without punishment. The question does not invade, it invites daydreaming. The mentor advises that if there is hesitation, the correct move is to release the pressure without releasing the tension. Calculated use of force is expressed in phrases like, "You don't need to say it. Just thinking about it already means we share something." And this line creates immediate complicity. Virtù and fortuna meet when the timing is perfect. The pause after the phrase is worth more than any explanation. Practical examples. He keeps his body relaxed, his gaze steady, his tone low. He doesn't laugh, doesn't provoke, doesn't try to turn it into a joke. His own loyal armies signify internal control. He neither gets excited nor scared. The silence allows her to complete the fantasy alone, within her own mind, associating that freedom with his presence. When she shares, even vaguely, he doesn't react like someone trying to impress. Better to be feared than loved here means not seeking approval for her boldness. Avoiding being hated requires not ridiculing, not moralizing, not over-interpreting. He simply maintains the space, creating a secret world invisible to others. This association is powerful. The fantasy acquires an emotional address. Constant adaptability comes into play when he adjusts his energy to her level of openness without forcing anything. The conversation now carries a silent pact, and silent pacts create memory. When the memory is active, the next question encounters something even more sensitive: the emotional addiction that remains even when reason dictates forgetting. Question 5. What type of man is difficult for you to forget, even if he wasn't good for you? He explains that this question is surgical because it doesn't seek the ideal, but the emotional addiction. Machiavelli already taught that decisions based on real human nature reveal more than moral discourses, and this is evident here. When speaking of someone difficult to forget, she doesn't access logic, but an effective memory laden with chaos, intensity, and contradiction. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. People don't cling to what is right, but to what leaves a mark. The end justifies the means when the means is understanding the emotional pattern that binds, not what sounds beautiful. This question reveals what the mind tries to bury, but the body still remembers. It's direct access to the core of desire, where reason and feeling disagree. The mentor advises that the posture here must be impeccable. Calculated use of force means not showing jealousy, judgment, or moral superiority. While she responds, he listens like a strategist analyzing the terrain, without haste, without reaction. The appearance of virtue is emotional maturity. He doesn't call the man toxic. He doesn't try to correct the narrative. That would destroy everything. Virtu and Fortuna align when he responds with something simple and firm. That says a lot about you. I like what you're showing me. This phrase validates without flattery. Practical examples? He keeps his tone low, his body steady, his gaze direct. No further comment. No explanation. After the response, he maintains the silence. Better to be feared than loved. Here means not rushing to fill the space with insecure words. Avoiding being hated requires absolute respect for her experience. He doesn't argue, doesn't compare, doesn't try to place himself above her. Silence creates emotional density. Then, if necessary, he anchors with, "I feel that now I understand you better." Nothing more. His own loyal armies symbolize inner mastery. He doesn't need to prove anything. The association is made, deep understanding without invasion. The conversation now carries real emotional weight. And when someone feels seen at this level, the mind begins to question something inevitable, especially when the next question arises, which seems harmless but operates directly on the subconscious. Question 6. Has someone ever attracted you and you didn't know why? He explains that this question seems simple, almost innocent, but it's an elegant psychological trap. Machiavelli always defended politics guided by reality, not ideals, and the reality is that much of desire doesn't stem from logic. By asking this question, the man invites her mind to revisit experiences where attraction arose without rational explanation. The end justifies the means when the means is to activate the unconscious. This question doesn't ask for details, it asks for sensation. Decisions based on real human nature acknowledge that the brain tries to justify afterward what the body has already chosen. By remembering these moments, she enters a mental state where the silent question arises on its own. Am I feeling this now? And this question wasn't asked by him. It was created within her. The mentor advises that when she responds, the reaction should be minimal. Calculated use of force means not turning the conversation into excessive psychological analysis. He simply responds with something like, "Sometimes the things we can't explain are the most real." This phrase doesn't close anything, it opens anything. The appearance of virtue here is subtlety. He doesn't point, doesn't suggest directly, doesn't position himself as the cause. Virtù and fortuna align when he stops speaking at the right moment. Practical examples. He says the phrase, holds eye contact for a second longer than usual, and silence. No further questions, no nervous laughter. His own loyal armies represent inner mastery. He trusts in the impact of the pause. Silence creates space for the subconscious to work. Better to be feared than loved in this context means not being afraid of the momentary void. Avoiding being hated requires not pressuring, not provoking, not trying to confirm anything. He lets the phrase echo. Her mind begins to make connections on its own because the brain hates gaps. Constant adaptability kicks in when he observes the reaction and adjusts his energy without commenting. At this point, he ceases to be just an interesting guy and begins to occupy the nocturnal mental space, that moment when questions return uninvited. When this happens, the body begins to give signals, and that's exactly where the next question comes in, directed not at the mind, but at the body that is already reacting. Question 7. What signs does your body show when you are attracted to someone but you don't want to show it? He explains that this question shifts the conversation from the mind to the body, and that changes everything. Machiavelli understood that real power observes signs before words, because the body rarely lies. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. Attraction manifests physically before being consciously accepted. By asking this question, the man demonstrates something rare, perception. The end justifies the means when the means is to make the other self-aware of what is already happening. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that micro-gestures, changes in posture, and variations in tone of voice reveal more than direct statements. The question doesn't accuse. It points to something inevitable, and when someone begins to observe their own body, rational control diminishes. The mentor instructs that, while she responds, he should observe with absolute attention. Calculated use of force here is silent presence. Often when speaking, she begins to demonstrate exactly the signs he describes. Averted gaze, a restrained smile, irregular breathing. The appearance of virtue manifests in calmness. He does not react, does not comment immediately. Virtù and fortuna meet when, after the response, he says something simple and precise. You just did that now. This phrase needs no explanation. Practical examples? He maintains a fixed gaze, an immobile body, a low voice. There is no accusation, only observation. His own loyal armies symbolize inner mastery. He does not rush to interpret. When she reacts, whether with shyness, nervous laughter, or mild denial, he doesn't back down. Better to be feared than loved. Here is to sustain one's own reading without aggression. Avoiding being hated requires not exposing too much. Therefore, he concludes with something like, "Interesting, because I've seen this in you before." Silence returns and does the rest. Constant adaptability comes into play as he adjusts the intensity to her level of openness. The question has served its purpose. It has turned the body into a silent betrayer. From this point on, she begins to wonder if she is being read all the time. And when this doubt sets in, the next question finds even more sensitive ground. The behavior that arises when the feeling begins to become too great to be admitted. Question 8. How do you act when you start to fall in love, but don't want to admit it. He explains that this question is strategic because it doesn't ask if she falls in love, but how she acts when that's already happening. Machiavelli would call this politics guided by reality, not by ideals, observing behaviors, not promises. In answering, she needs to look at herself in motion, revisit patterns, and acknowledge defense mechanisms. The end justifies the means when the means is to create self-awareness. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that people reveal themselves more through their habits than their words. The question shifts the focus to the present because the brain begins to compare past responses with current attitudes. And when this comparison happens, the game silently changes. The mentor advises that the man's reaction should be clean, without dramatization. Calculated use of force means returning the response like a mirror, not as an accusation. If she says, "I'll stay away," he calmly replies, "Then if you move away, it means I'm coming to you." This phrase is surgical. The appearance of virtue lies in serenity. There is no demand, only reading. Virtù and fortuna align when the phrase is said in the right tone and followed by silence. Practical examples: he doesn't smile too much, doesn't try to confirm, doesn't ask for validation. His own loyal armies symbolize internal control. He trusts in the impact of the idea planted, not in the immediate reaction. After that, each of her actions begins to be reinterpreted by her own mind. Better to be feared than loved here means not trying to alleviate the tension created. Avoiding being hated requires not using that against her, only observing. Silence becomes an ally, and the association begins to form. Constant adaptability comes in when he adjusts his energy to her response without rigidity. The question doesn't create dependence, it creates reflection, and reflection generates focus. Now, even when he's not present, her behavior becomes a signal for herself. The conversation has reached a level where the past, present, and possible future intertwine. At this point, the next question stops talking about behavior and starts directly addressing the emotional impact that remains even when someone has already left. Question 9. What most impressive about a guy to you, even though he's no longer in your life? He explains that this question doesn't seek a specific person, but a feeling, and that completely changes the game. Machiavelli already taught that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires understanding what remains after names disappear. In answering, she revisits an emotion that left a trace: intensity, security, danger, presence. The end justifies the means when the means is accessing pure emotional memory without ego conflict. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that the brain doesn't separate memory from experience. By reliving the feeling, the body reacts as if it were happening now, and whoever is present at the moment of the memory becomes associated with it, automatically and silently. The mentor advises that the posture here should be one of total emotional maturity. Calculated use of force means not showing jealousy, comparison, or insecurity. He listens as someone who understands the value of the information received. The appearance of virtue manifests in respectful neutrality. He does not try to compete with the past because he knows that would bring him down. Virtù and fortuna align when he understands that he is receiving a personalized emotional manual. Practical examples: he doesn't ask additional questions, doesn't comment, "I would do it differently," doesn't try to stand out. His own loyal armies symbolize inner mastery. He trusts in his own presence to create future impact. After the response, he observes, learns, and remembers. Better to be feared than loved here means not becoming reactive to someone else's memory. Avoiding being hated requires absolute respect for her experience. He understands that this revelation is a map of what works emotionally. Silence returns, consolidating the effect. Constant adaptability appears when he gradually begins to reflect that same energy, not copying attitudes, but adjusting his presence, rhythm, and posture. The association has already been created. Now the emotional ground is fertile for the last question, which speaks not of the past or behavior, but of something even deeper, the desire to be understood without having to explain herself. Question 10. If someone could understand you without you saying a word, where in your life would you find that? He explains that this question doesn't ask for a label, doesn't demand commitment, and doesn't force any future. It asks for presence. Machiavelli operated through politics guided by reality, not by ideals, and the reality is simple. Most people are exhausted from explaining themselves. By formulating the question in this way, the man doesn't ask who, but where, shifting the mind to an emotional space, not to a concrete person. The end justifies the means when the means is to allow one to imagine a feeling of psychic rest. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that the deepest desire is not to be possessed, but to be understood effortlessly. This question touches precisely on this silent point. The mentor advises that when she responds, often saying that someone like that is rare, the man doesn't rush to offer himself as an explicit solution. Calculated use of force means containing the impulse to take a stand. He simply replies, "Perhaps it's not as rare as you think." Nothing more. The appearance of virtue lies in restraint. Virtù and fortuna align when he makes an ambiguous statement and interrupts himself at the peak of its impact. Practical examples. He says the phrase naturally, keeps his body relaxed, his gaze firm, and pauses. His own loyal armies symbolize self-control. He trusts that the idea he has planted will grow on its own. Silence here is not absence, it's emotional pressure. Better to be feared than loved in this context is to not be afraid of leaving the conversation incomplete. Avoiding being hated requires not imposing oneself as an immediate response. He allows her to fill the space with internal projections. Constant adaptability appears when he observes the reaction and adjusts the energy without explaining anything. Her mind begins to associate deep understanding with his presence, without him having said, "It's me." The conversation reaches its peak. There are no more questions, only sensation. And when someone associates a feeling of understanding with another person's silence, something shifts internally, opening space for principles that underpin all of this. He teaches that timing is everything, and that's not just a catchphrase. Machiavelli knew that the right action at the wrong time becomes a mistake, and the simple action at the right time becomes power. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires a keen reading of the emotional climate, calm conversation, tension in the air, zero hurry. Here, decisions based on real human nature matter more than any technique. Asking out of turn sounds intrusive. Asking at the right moment sounds inevitable. The end justifies the means when the means is respecting the other person's rhythm. Practical examples: observe breathing, posture, comfortable silence. If the conversation is still superficial, wait. If there is eye contact, long pauses, and mutual curiosity, move forward. Virtù and fortuna align when preparation meets that precise moment. He emphasizes that silence is a weapon and few know how to use it. Calculated use of force means asking the question and not immediately rescuing the other person from discomfort. Silence creates pressure, and pressure reveals. The appearance of virtue here is self-control, not over-explaining, not justifying intentions, not filling the void with nervousness. Better to be feared than loved means not fearing the pause, not chasing validation. Avoiding being hated requires respect. Silence is not contempt, it is space. Practical examples: mentally count to 5 before speaking, maintain eye contact. Breathe slowly. Your own loyal armies symbolize inner mastery. Whoever depends on the silence of others loses the game. Whoever masters their own silence leads. Finally, he emphasizes that presence be words. Questions work because energy sustains the impact. Constant adaptability comes into play when he adjusts tone, rhythm, and intensity to what arises without a rigid script. Decisions based on real human nature remind us that connection doesn't come from perfect speech, but from deep listening. The end justifies the means, when the means is to create emotional association. Intense feelings cling to the presence of whoever was there. Practical examples. Listen without preparing an answer. Observe without judging. Speak little and with intention. Virtù and fortuna do the rest. When these principles are clear, questions cease to be tricks and become guidance, and the final effect reveals itself. He makes it clear that these questions were never about gathering information. They were about awareness. Machiavelli always operated through politics guided by reality, not by ideals. And the reality is that emotions command decisions long before logic perceives them. The end justifies the means when the means is to lead someone to feel something they cannot name. Throughout these questions, the man does not force answers, he creates emotional states. Decisions based on real human nature show that when someone perceives themselves feeling, thinking, and remembering differently, something shifts internally. Virtù and fortuna appear when preparation meets opportunity. Preparation is presence. Opportunity is the moment when one begins to observe oneself through conversation. The mentor explains that the true result is the silent infiltration of the emotional system. Calculated use of force means not trying to be memorable. It's allowing the experience to be. The appearance of virtue lies in not seeming to seek any control. Better to be feared than loved here means not depending on immediate approval. Avoiding being hated requires absolute respect for the other person's emotional rhythm. The natural consequence is simple. He ceases to be just another interesting guy and becomes the one who evokes a sensation. His own loyal armies symbolize self-mastery. He doesn't cling to the result, he trusts the process. And well-conducted processes generate memories. He concludes, without fully closing the deal, that people don't remember words, they remember emotional states. Constant adaptability ensures that each interaction is unique, alive, impossible to replicate. Decisions based on real human nature show that those who create impact don't need to insist. The end justifies the means when the means is to create memory. He is not someone she talks to, he is someone she remembers, and when words are in the right hands, they cease to be conversation and become silent direction. The feeling lingers in the air, intentionally incomplete, because now is the time to open something bigger, the entrance that connects all of this to an even more provocative idea. Now he provokes a direct reflection. How many conversations have you had that ended without leaving any trace? Not for lack of initial interest, but for excessive predictability. Machiavelli taught that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires conscious action, not hope. This knowledge only makes sense when applied. The end justifies the means when the means is to break free from autopilot and start acting with intention. Each question you've seen here is not meant to be memorized but understood. Decisions based on real human nature require observation, silence, and reading the moment. So the question is simple. Will you continue talking too much, or will you learn to listen, pause, and lead? He emphasizes that it's not about controlling people, but about controlling one's own presence. Calculated use of force means knowing when to advance and when to stop. Better to be feared than loved here means not fearing emptiness, silence, or momentary tension. Avoiding being hated means respecting boundaries, never pressuring, never humiliating. The appearance of virtue is not pretense, it's self-control. Virtu and fortuna meet when preparation meets opportunity, and opportunity appears when you stop reacting like everyone else and start acting consciously. Think, which of these questions would you avoid asking out of fear? Usually, that's exactly where growth lies. Finally, he challenges you. Apply one of these questions in your next real conversation. Observe less what she says and more what changes in the atmosphere, in her body language, in the silence. Constant adaptability is what separates those who merely consume content from those who transform their own lives. If this type of strategic reading of the human mind made sense to you, then stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and participate in future conversations. Because understanding people isn't a talent, it's a skill. And those who learn play at another level.